Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1041 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. I felt this chapter to my core. This is the kind of stuff that I look forward to most. There is so much to unpack from the chapter itself. Hints, suggestions about the nature of mysteries that will soon or probably will soon be revealed. But it's not clear. All wrapped up in current events that feel really dramatic and momentous. Emotion simply permeated the whole chapter. And you'll notice something very important about this chapter. This is a thing that a lot of fans and readers are very cognizant of when you get it, when they don't want it. But One Piece is a joke manga. That's first and foremost one of the most important vibes that One Piece is designed to create. Laughter. Of course, there's a delicate balance because One Piece discusses serious concepts, adult concepts, important issues, and they aren't jokes in and of itself. It rides this line of being emotionally charged but also lighthearted. Honestly, as an aside here, this is really relevant, I feel like, to current events going on right now. I assume most people know about Ukraine, but we live in such an absurd time, right, with social media, and so the majority of social media's reaction to what was taking place and what is currently taking place is a lot of jokes. I think that you see some people overreact to these jokes as if it's a suggestion that the events that are taking place aren't horrific and, that they aren't important. But jokes exist in this weird state where, they're relevant and they serve a purpose both in sadness and in happiness. And I wonder if Oda may even be alluding to this to some extent with Smile, and how that works. Laughter, probably as much as anything else, can be a coping mechanism to allow people to survive with their sanity, and creates an environment where truths could be spoken in a way which resonates with either side of an issue. Obviously, there's different types of humor, but in general, regardless of where you're from, culturally, nationally, racially, whatever, sense of humor is shared. Laughter simply brings people together. To something more, I think, related to my YouTube space and things that we've talked about over the last year is criticism. Some of the best critics, I feel like, within the space are funny people. Things like Cinema Sins works really well, where you point out the flaws in things in a way that is humorous, and it's this kind of thing which demonstrates the power that I feel like jokes have, the ability to reach the other side. But as is becoming more and more apparent over time, laughter is one of the most central themes of the entire story and likely relates to Oda's view for how to save the world, for lack of a better term. A notion which I think carries a lot of truth with it. But there also eventually comes a point where Oda flips the switch, when it becomes most important to emotionally invest in the stakes of the moment, rather than disassociate from the hurt and the pain. You instead embrace it. It's these moments which solidify the fact that, yes, we may be joking, but this is not a joke. And that's where this chapter is really starting to take me emotionally. And while I do like the jokes in One Piece, for me they're more of a spacer. They're an entertaining filler between these moments of heavy drama. I really do think that Oda uses comedy as sort of the filler, the baseline thing that you should enjoy One Piece from a chapter to chapter basis, but the punchline isn't really a joke. It doesn't feel that way and it isn't treated that way. So I would say that Oda makes it a point to include at least one joke in almost every single chapter, like a thing that is really intended to make you laugh. Even when fans are ready for the emotional stakes to ramp up and for every moment of a chapter to feel serious, Oda will still include jokes way past when others subjectively feel like the time for jokes is over. Therefore, people have been waiting during the course of Wano for almost a year now for Oda to get to this chapter where there were no jokes. And that's part of the reason why this chapter feels so much heavier. This may not actually be true, but I like to believe that it could be true. The only thing that from this chapter that could really be considered a joke is Kaido's reaction to Big Mom being defeated, where he goes weeping drunk. I mean, that could be a joke, and what I said here is, not true technically. But immediately after he does that, Luffy just beats the snot out of him. And I like to believe in my own head, my universe here, that it's like Oda saying, "Bah, we're done with jokes." Of course, this will immediately come back to bite me in the next chapter, right? Where there's some sort of joke or something, right? Everything that I said here, all very profound, very epic, JB, and then just immediately, right? I kind of expect that. But it didn't change the fact that this chapter for sure felt very momentous and serious, emotionally charged. But anyway, without further ado, let's just talk about the chapter itself, because there's still so much more to talk about. We begin with Momonosuke revealing to Yamato Zunisha's presence, his conversation with her, and from that we get a suggestion once again that Momonosuke is Joy Boy. If that isn't the most banger opening I have ever seen in a One Piece chapter, like, geez, like that's a thing that Oda would usually say for the end of the chapter, but there's so much good stuff in this chapter that he's like, nah, we're gonna preface it with that. That's when you know a chapter's gonna be fire. But anyway, here's what actually happens. Momo says, "I spoke with Zunisha briefly, but I still do not have the whole picture." And then we see Zoe, "I await your orders. I have come to fight by your side." And then Yamato says, "Incredible, you can really speak to it. Just like Odin predicted, you're the one that is meant to lead the world to its dawn." I want to make this very clear, right? She is not saying that Momonosuke is Joy Boy, but this line, "you're the one to lead the world to its dawn," is like, that's what we're all thinking, right? Of course, Yamato said this before in some earlier chapters in Onigashima, but I feel like this just made it more legit. Momo learned why he can't die. The ability to communicate with Zunisha suggests that Momo is some kind of great person who is, in Yamato's opinion, going to lead the world to its dawn. We've talked about this a lot, but Oda is definitely setting up the expectation that Momo is Joy Boy. Doesn't have to be true, but it seems like that's what Yamato believes. Also, because we know that Joy Boy is supposed to appear. That's another thing that Odin predicted. It seems like the great thing that Odin was preparing for is Joy Boy. While the central idea may be opening the borders, it's in preparation for Joy Boy. And so seeing everything that Yamato has, reading the journal as well, the only thing that we know of really that she's found noteworthy and a connection between the present events and the journal is Momonosuke, so you would think it would have something to do with Joy Boy. But anyway, we've had this conversation before, and I suppose things haven't necessarily changed. I don't think that Momonosuke is Joy Boy, even though that's clearly what the story is trying to make us believe. I think that it's a red herring. I think that Oda's going to pull an oopsie daisy at some point in time and bring us back to the initial thought at some point that Luffy is Joy Boy. However he does that, I don't know, but that's what I believe. That being said, until we get there, right, we only have the chapters and the information available to us, so Oda can do whatever he damn well pleases. And it doesn't change my feeling and my excitement for Momonosuke, his powers, what they mean, why he can't die, what's in the journal, and everything about this. So how exactly do I interpret this? Well, let's not use the term dawn, and let's instead call it the path to the sun. That Momonosuke is supposed to lead the world along the path to the sun. Well, that is the terminology that the fishmen use, that we were introduced to in Fishman Island, that I assume it refers to the same thing. It's explained to us that the fishmen want to live up on the surface, under the sun, and this is the inspiration for the Sun Pirate's name. I think that it's no coincidence that the sun imagery is shared with the dream of the dawn, which is a mink and Wano thing. So I like to conflate these, like, even though it isn't called the dawn, we don't hear about the fishmen waiting on the dawn, both groups have prophecies about the exact same thing, and a person or people who are supposed to make it happen. And so the actual person that is likely to lead the fishmen on the path to the sun, lead them to their version of the dawn, it is in reality Luffy, right? But the person who's literally going to do it is likely going to be Shirahoshi. That is the whole point of the Noah, which we see in Fishman Island. Shirahoshi is supposed to use her powers in order to command the Sea Kings to grab the chains which are connected to the Noah. All the fishermen are supposed to get on the Noah and then Shirahoshi will lead them on a path to the sun once certain criteria are met. So you guys follow my logic here? So you could basically say that Shirahoshi will lead the fishermen on a path to the dawn, even though we know that Luffy is going to play an important role in making that possible. So now let's apply this to Momonosuke. One of the most famous, influential, and beloved theories ever created in One Piece is the destruction of the Red Line, that it will be important at some point in time to destroy the Red Line because of many reasons, but like off the top of my head, how are you going to have the all blue, which is all the seas and all the fish together, right, with the Red Line existing? And you have some subtle foreshadowing, such as Laboon trying to destroy the Red Line, the Giants talking about the giant serpent soaked in blood that they can't destroy. The Red Line separates the world, divides people, leaves the world in pieces. I think the Red Line has to go. And there's a lot of additional logic besides that. But a problem that some people had when this theory was created, which I consider to be a major nitpick, was that, realistically, right, if you destroy the Red Line and the rubble falls into the ocean, what happens? Well, in reality, the world is destroyed. We're talking about biblical levels of flooding. I personally like to think about Aqua Laguna, and I think that Aqua Laguna could act as foreshadowing for some of the things that we're talking about because it's very relevant. Imagine it, but on a global scale. I think that a lot of people sort of focus on Fisherman Island when it comes to this, that if you destroy the Red Line, well, other things happen. For instance, Fisherman Island exists below the Red Line. So if you destroy the Red Line, you destroy Fisherman Island, and the solution to that problem is the Noah, that Shirahoshi will take the residents of Fisherman Island before the island is destroyed, save them all, they go onto the Noah, and then they're saved. But what about everybody else in the Grand Line? Realistically, there are major consequences that need to be had if a thing as large as the Red Line is destroyed. And it isn't just vaporized into gas, which I personally find unlikely. And so with this in mind, I potentially see a reason for Momonosuke, or anybody, to have the power to control giant creatures which have currently, we see them posing as islands. Islands on stilts. Seriously, look at coastal cities and areas that are prone to flooding. How are houses built? They're built on stilts. Whether intentional or not, Zunisha is designed in a way to withstand a great world flood. So if it happens like this, it doesn't have to, but if it does happen like this, you destroy the Red Line, it creates a catastrophic, biblical type event. Then Momonosuke could potentially use his powers, control over not just Zunisha, but other creatures like Zunisha. I'm talking about, for instance, if the things in the Florian Triangle are other giant elephant-like creatures, he can control them, use them, command them to save the people of the Grand Line or elsewhere so that they survive the apocalypse. And then I presume after this event is over, the sky will clear and the world will encounter the dawn. So with this being my train of logic, it's fitting then for Yamato to think and Oden to suggest within his journal that Momonosuke, or more likely the person who possesses Momonosuke's power, is going to lead the world to its dawn. Also, it makes a lot of sense why Momonosuke would believe, and Oden would write, that the person with Momonosuke's power can't or shouldn't die. That's a bad thing. That's my theory. Simultaneously, he doesn't have to be Joy Boy. But Oda can sure make us think that. And this theory might also tell us why it is so important to open up the borders. That's a thing that, it's tough to come up with an actual reason, a literal reason why such a thing is necessary. Symbolically, I think it makes a lot of sense. Opening the borders is something that I find to be fitting in the story of One Piece, because a lot of the resolution to a lot of conflict is about opening yourself up and bringing the world together. You can't do that while you're separated. But what's the actual reason that Oden is so dead set that the borders of Wano need to be opened before the day that Joy Boy appears? Again, with this idea of flooding, Wano itself is designed to withstand major flooding, just the same as something like Zunisha. There's also theories out there that Wano isn't natural either, that it was designed and built using continent pullers. So the theory is that Wano is a fortress meant to protect the world, or protect a large number of people before the apocalypse. Another thing that I find to be thematically fitting in the story of One Piece: the borders of Wano need to be open because doing so will save people. However, the Kozuki were forced to close it for a long period of time before the promised day arrived because of the dangers that somebody would come in, take it over, and not open the borders later, or discover the various hints to what it's supposed to do, and the poneglyphs, etc. Anyway, that's my theory about that, but it's certainly fitting, I think, with Momonosuke's dialogue at the end of his section of the chapter. He says that the importance of the task of opening the borders still eludes me. It's not like Father was an all-seeing prophet. If he was still alive, would he still want to open the borders under these circumstances? I am not as wise as he was. I think of the potential dangers to the people of Wano, and it makes me want to keep the borders shut. Does that make me a coward? And it's like, no, because maybe the point of opening the borders is to protect people from potential dangers. Momonosuke, you thinking about it like that is exactly the reason why Oden wants to open them. Because caring about the well-being of others is not cowardly. And doing what's required to ensure that people are protected is not cowardly. For instance, dancing, humiliating, naked in the streets. So in essence here, it emphasizes how Momonosuke is similar to Oden, rather than different, as he assumes. But anyway, let's move on. The next section of this chapter was short, focused on Raizo. At the conclusion of his battle with Fukurokuju, he is heavily injured, and Jinbei finds him. I'm going to be honest with you. You guys obviously read the fan translation, many of you did. Some of you will be watching this video after the official comes out. I think that we should wait for the official before we spend too much time on this section, because I've basically been told that Raizo's last line about preparations is it's a tough translation. Translated literally, Raizo's last speech bubble says this: "What a blunder, even though prepared. There's no subject. I was prepared, we were prepared, the preparations are complete." None of that. You gotta fill that in yourself, the same as any translator would. And that, you come to that conclusion based on context, and it's just very not clear. I think that this line has the potential to be a major mistranslation and totally mislead the people who read the fan translation into thinking that it is far more important than it is. I'm not saying that's true, I'm just saying that the great potential exists. Like, for instance, what Raizo could be saying is that, what a bummer that I am in this state when us, the samurai, and the Alliance prepared to fight Kaido. It could also mean, what a blunder, even though I was prepared to die, I'm still alive, right? So rather than go on for 6 minutes, I'm just going to stop here, and probably will have a comments video this week talking about this line among other things. But pressing forward, the Komurasaki Hiyori moments with Orochi in this chapter were just incredible. I remember thinking a couple weeks ago when we see that Hiyori's playing her banjo and it lures Orochi to her, like, what exactly did Oda have in mind for that scene? It felt, I guess the best word that I can use here is it felt surreal. And while that's still true, and the scene itself is kind of weird, now that we've gotten to the moment that Oda was working towards, it makes a lot of sense. It's very clear that Oda set up from the very beginning of the arc. An idea that he had was that Hiyori plays a song because Oden loved it. This same song that Orochi loved as well, but when playing it for Orochi, she could never smile. So instead she chooses to wear a mask, so that Orochi couldn't see. I didn't really think about this as a mystery, but it was. I mean, we have between all of the acts and the scenes in Wano, you see Hiyori playing her instrument with the mask on. It never occurred to me to ask why. And at the same time, reflecting upon this chapter, another question that I should have been asking, but I wasn't, was how did Oda envision Hiyori revealing her identity to Orochi? I mean, this was from the very beginning, right? Hiyori was posing as Komurasaki. We knew that Orochi loved Komurasaki, so it's like obvious, right? At some point in time, it's like, haha, I'm Hiyori. Maybe it was the length of the arc, maybe it was the time between, maybe I'm just off my game, but, the thought slipped my mind. But we have it happen in this chapter, and you realize how much Oda set it up, and how perfect the moment really was. I think that Revujo's artwork this week really encapsulate how it made me feel. And it reminds me of the veneer that Hiyori put on. Like, you could never tell how much anger and hatred she really had at any point, with interactions with any character. I mean, you knew that it was there. She even told Zoro, I want to kill Orochi, but, she's always wearing a mask. And I think that you can see how symbolic it is that she wears one when she plays the song. She's a person that in most cases is in control. She doesn't need a mask to wear a mask. Except regarding this. And no lie guys, that freaking hurts. Even though we don't actually get to see Hiyori's face, emotion absolutely pours out of the pages. And that was a great segue into the pages that followed. We start off with Izo, and we gotta be careful, right? Everyone knows this. Is a character dead or not? Are they going to die? Oda loves to play with our hearts, so maybe not. But again, my interpretation is that Izo has sacrificed himself for everyone else. But I really hope that Cypher Pull agent isn't actually dead. I want to see what's under their freaking masks. They've worn masks from very early on in the story, and you're just like, okay, who's under it? Is it going to be some sort of reveal or crazy design or interesting race or something? But Oda is trying to tell us that this guy is dead. Please, no. Overall, though, I would say that I'm very surprised with how Oda has handled CP0 in this arc. Obviously we hadn't seen them fight throughout the story. I mean, they've been presence, they've been hyped up, but power scaling wise, how can you know how strong they are if they haven't actually fought? So my expectations going into this arc and when they showed up was that they were going to be a force, and it really hasn't amounted to that. Izo encountered them already heavily injured, already being a major participant in the war, and it was Izo versus several other members of Cypher Pull. At least 2, I thought it was 3, but at least 2, and was able to kill one, or mortally wound one. It almost suggests to me that a character like Izo, who I think is strong but not that strong, is still stronger than any of those Cypher Pull agents. Like I said, just really surprising. But it fits the trajectory of the theme that O's been playing with for this arc. We've had a lot of enemies hyped up, Kaido and Big Mom being 2 major ones, their entire forces and Cypher Pull, and in almost every case, the hype for the enemies wasn't for the sake of the enemies. That energy was transformed into hype for the heroes. These incredibly strong people that you thought would wash the allies are instead getting defeated. It's happening over and over again. The overarching message here, the takeaway, is that the Strat Pirates and the people that they have on their side and the allies that they create are a force to be reckoned with. And I also think that a more subtle takeaway as well is that the heroes and the allies have something much more important to fight for, which empowers them perhaps beyond what should be possible. In most cases in the story of One Piece, the person or the people that have the greater will end up victorious. When you put Cypher Pull's reasons for wanting to win against Izo's, it's not even close. But we're not done talking about Cypher Pull. After Izo is defeated, the leader of CP0 receives a call on the Dendenmushi, and it is from the 5 Elder Stars. A direct order. You are to eliminate Straw Hat Luffy immediately. And he says, what are you talking about? Straw Hat is in the middle of fighting Kaido. You can't expect me to interfere in that battle. It's impossible. The call goes on to say, we are aware of the difficulties. The world-class nature of this battle is what makes this important. Don't you get it? This order is a necessary precaution. Even we aren't privy to all the details. Look, we had a chapter recently where the Gorosei had a meeting and they were concerned about a particular devil fruit. And then we advance to this chapter and we see that the orders have changed and now they are to mark Straw Hat Luffy no matter the cost. Despite the fact that to interfere in Luffy and Kaido's battle is 1, stupid, and 2, maybe impossible. I hope you don't need me to put 1 and 1 together. Once again, we're going to phrase it the same way as we did before. It appears that Oda is creating expectation. He is making us believe that Luffy's devil fruit is the one that the Gorosei were freaking out about. The one that was erased from history. But is it actually the case or not? I mean, we just have to read and find out. But here's the thing that I want to highlight. There was a line from the Gorosei in chapter 1037 where they said it wouldn't be out of place for someone to die unexpectedly during a war that involves Kaido and Big Mom. This is our chance to erase that nuisance. It isn't clear who they were talking about, but it is possible that they were talking about Luffy. While I've said this just now, I think that it's unlikely. First off, they said that there is the chance for someone to die unexpectedly. Luffy dying wouldn't be unexpected. But I think that more importantly, before this conversation, the Gorosei speak about Nico Robin. Nico Robin appears to be the highest priority person that they want to take out at this moment. And so we even see the Cypher Pole agent right before he gets a call in Dindamushi. All right, I have to get Nico Robin. But then he gets the call and they're like, no, Luffy, first and foremost priority now. So I don't think that Luffy was the nuisance. Their view of Luffy has changed. So let's talk about Luffy's devil fruit. The identity of Luffy's devil fruit, him possessing it, is not new information. So that fact alone can't have swayed the Gorosei to panic. Perhaps they fear Luffy awakening his devil fruit. Maybe that was a situation they didn't think was possible. We don't still fully understand awakening, but maybe if Luffy's devil fruit is legendary in some respect, remember Shanks took that from the world government, so the fruit is clearly of some importance. Maybe only now is it becoming a fear that Luffy awakens it. That seems pretty realistic to me, and him awakening the fruit in some way is a game changer. But I would say that right now the safest assumption about what has changed in regards to the Gorosei's view of Luffy is that it seems extraordinarily likely now that Luffy is going to defeat Kaido. Throughout this entire battle, the Gorosei and Cypher Pole didn't even view that as a possibility. They were simply hoping that Luffy and allies put up a good enough fight that they would wear down Kaido and Big Mom so that the world government could swoop in later. Whenever Basil Hawkins was calculating odds, it was never like the percent that Kaido was going to lose or that Luffy or the allies were going to win. It was like the percent that they would survive. Winning was never a thought that any of the Strat's enemies ever even considered. I'm reminded of what Kaido said as he knocked Luffy off the island and thought that he had won. He said, "So you couldn't be Joy Boy either." The implication that I got from this, and many others as well, was that Kaido knows something, that the person that defeated him perhaps could be Joy Boy. I think that there's a reason that Kaido said this immediately after thinking that he had defeated Luffy. It seems to me like an acknowledgement that the fight and its result is important, and that the person who won, or the person that defeated Kaido, could be of historic relevance. If Kaido knows that, then I would assume that the world government would know that as well. I still love the theory that there's some kind of prophecy or information available to characters that we currently don't know that foretells essentially Kaido's defeat and how that plays a role in the events to come. Like the sign of the person who is destined to change the world. Kaido is introduced as a person looking for a great battle and looking to die. I presume that the person that is supposed to defeat him and kill him would therefore be important. Kaido craves a worthy death. So I wonder if these pieces add up into something that makes sense, even though we don't have the full story. Either way, there's so much about this that is intriguing. I think that it's very fitting that the leader of CP0 is going to try to intervene in Luffy and Kaido's fight, because you'll know that that was a thing that happened previously. When Oden fought Kaido, somebody intervened in that fight, and Kaido wasn't happy about that. Maybe because he thought Oden would be the one. I'm fully expecting that Cypher Pole agent to get washed by Kaido. He's seen this before and he doesn't like it. I'm also preparing myself for X-Drake to do something influential in saving the Strats in some way. There is a reason why Oda had him overhear CP0's conversation about them targeting Luffy. X-Drake may not be a true ally, but I think that hearing what it is that his enemies want will convince him that saving Luffy is probably a good thing. I think that that's going to happen. Tactically, it's pretty standard in a military setting, those who have military training, that if you know what your enemy is trying to do, even if you don't know the importance of that, it's more often than not a good idea to not give them that. But yeah, I am at the edge of my seat. I'm fully expecting curveballs and unexpected reveals and twists and turns. I mean, get ready. We then go from this scene to a compilation of many others, the allies. They're dying or they're in danger. I can't wait for the payoff with Zoro. I know it is going to be spectacular. But Marco's lines really stood out to me. Just watch out for the debris raining down. We can't drop our guards yet. This island is still the most dangerous place on the planet. We then see a picture of the hull that Law created. And then debris rains down on them and it's brought up again. Should we brace ourselves? It's almost as if Oda is giving the impression that the island itself is falling apart. Remember, Oda set this up from earlier. One of the fears that the Yamato and Momonosuke had is the island exploding and the debris raining down on the flower capital, killing the people there. Well, it seems like that's still a fear. Even if the bombs don't go off, which I'm not sure that the bomb plot has actually resolved yet. But another thing to consider, you have everybody on the island, and many of these people can't defend themselves. It appears, when we get to the end of the chapter, as if Oda is setting up Kaido's defeat. Luffy is going gear forth for the last time. He's going to put his all into it. And Law and Kid talk about whoever falls down, there's nothing that we can do about it. If it's Kaido, then we lose. We have nothing left to give. But when Kaido is defeated, I presume that the island itself will fall to the ground. So if that were to happen, we need a way to save the people that are currently on it, even if it isn't currently over the flower capital. Also, if the island itself falls to the ground, then wouldn't the bombs go off anyway? I'm just saying that this chapter has me thinking about these kinds of things, and I always in the past just believed that when in doubt, Law could save everyone, but it doesn't seem like it's in the cards. Will Luffy awaken his fruit and turn the island into rubber? Will Zunisha catch the island if it were to fall? Is Momonosuke going to unlock his powers, become strong enough to lift the island? It seems like a worthy question. But yeah, we'll say this again. This is peak One Piece. Right now, you are reading weekly experience. This is high tier. This is, in my opinion, as good as it freaking gets. And I cannot wait to read the chapter next week, which I presume is going to be the Kaido flashback that we have been waiting for so long. And you know it's just gonna deliver once again. But anyway, guys, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you noticed something from the chapter that I might have missed. Share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.